struggling with low self-esteem can feel like being trapped in your own shadow, but it doesn't have to stay that way. In this video, I'll share the first and most powerful step you must take to rebuild your confidence and transform your life from the inside out. Watch until the end, because the strategy I'll reveal could be the breakthrough you've been waiting for. Number 1. Practice positive self-talk. Alright, let's get real for a second. If low self-esteem had its hooks in me, the first thing I'd tackle would be the way I talk to myself. You know, that little voice inside your head that never seems to shut up? It's like the world's harshest critic, always ready to nitpick, tear you down, and remind you of all the things you think you lack. But here's the thing, it doesn't have to stay that way. That voice? You can train it, redirect it, even transform it into your biggest cheerleader. Sounds wild, right? But stick with me here. When your self-esteem is low, the thoughts running through your mind can feel like an unrelenting storm, full of negativity and doubt. It's like a broken record on repeat, and the message is always the same: you're not good enough. You'll fail. Why even try? Honestly, it's exhausting. But what if you could flip the script? What if, instead of letting that voice drag you down, you taught it to lift you up? The first step is catching it in the act. Seriously, start paying attention to the stuff you're saying to yourself. Most of the time, we don't even realize how harsh we're being. I'm such an idiot. I'll never be good at this. Why does anyone even like me? These thoughts fly under the radar, and before you know it, they've become your default. But when you catch one, don't just let it slide. Stop it dead in its tracks. Call it out, like, "Whoa, hold on. That's not true." Now comes the fun part, rewriting the script. You don't have to go overboard with fake-sounding affirmations like, "I am the most amazing person in the world," because let's be honest, you won't believe that right away. Start small and real. Instead of, "I'm such a failure," try something like, "I messed up, but I'm learning." It's about being kinder, gentler, and more encouraging, like you'd be to a friend who's having a tough day. Here's the catch, though, it's not an overnight fix. You're not going to wake up one day and magically love yourself because you said a few nice things in the mirror. This is a process, a commitment to being on your own side, even when it feels awkward or unnatural. Think of it like going to the gym. At first, it's hard, maybe even uncomfortable. But the more you do it, the stronger you get. The same goes for positive self-talk. The more you practice, the easier it becomes, and eventually, it starts to feel like second nature. One trick that works wonders? Use I am statements, but make them believable. I am capable. I am worthy of love. I am improving every day. You're not lying to yourself, you're reminding yourself of truths that the negativity has buried. Write them down, say them out loud, whisper them to yourself when no one's around, whatever works. The point is to start planting seeds of positivity in your mind and then keep watering them. And don't forget to mix it up. Variety is key. Some days you might focus on your strengths, like, "I'm really good at solving problems." Other days, you could highlight your efforts, "I'm proud of how hard I'm trying." The idea is to keep things fresh so that it doesn't feel like a chore. You're not reciting a script, you're having a real conversation with yourself. Finally, be patient. You didn't develop low self-esteem overnight, and you won't unlearn it in a day. But every time you choose kindness over criticism, you're making progress. Every time you challenge a negative thought, you're breaking the cycle. And every time you practice positive self-talk, you're taking one more step towards seeing yourself in a better light. So, if I had low self-esteem, this would be where I'd start, by learning to be my own biggest fan. It's not easy, and it's not quick, but it's worth it. Because once you change how you talk to yourself, you start to change how you see yourself. And that, my friend, is a game changer. Number 2, set small, achievable goals. If you're struggling with low self-esteem, setting small, achievable goals can be a game changer. Trust me, I know that sounds almost too simple, like something you'd read on a motivational poster with a picture of a sunrise or a mountain. But don't roll your eyes just yet, because there's some serious magic in starting small. When you're feeling down about yourself, the idea of tackling big, life-changing projects can feel like trying to climb Everest without shoes. So, why not start with something that feels a little more manageable? Here's the thing, when you're at a low point, even the tiniest win can give you a spark of confidence. Think about it. If you're used to feeling like you can't accomplish anything, completing a small goal can make you feel like a superhero, even if it's just for a moment. It could be as simple as making your bed every morning or drinking an extra glass of water during the day. Yeah, I know, it sounds ridiculously basic, but hear me out. Those little actions send a signal to your brain, hey, I can do this. And once you get that tiny rush of accomplishment, you'll want more. But it's not just about checking things off a list. Setting small goals teaches you a crucial lesson. You don't have to be perfect to make progress. You don't have to run a marathon to feel proud of yourself. Just walking a little further than you did yesterday is enough. And guess what? That's how confidence grows. It's not about one grand, dramatic moment, it's about stacking little victories until they start to feel like second nature. Now, let's talk about the power of specificity. Be more productive or fix my life isn't going to cut it here. Those are way too vague, and they'll only make you feel overwhelmed. Instead, get laser focused. Choose something specific and measurable. For example, if you're trying to get out of a funk, don't just say, I want to feel better. Try something like, I'll write down 3 things I'm grateful for before bed tonight. See the difference? One feels like a mountain, the other feels like a pebble. And trust me, you can handle a pebble. Here's another trick, start with stuff you actually care about. If you pick goals just because they sound impressive or because someone else thinks you should, you'll lose interest fast. Be honest with yourself about what matters to you right now. Maybe it's cleaning up your living space because you feel calmer in a tidy environment. Maybe it's learning a new skill because you've always been curious about it. Whatever it is, make sure it's something that sparks even the tiniest flicker of excitement. One thing you'll notice as you start hitting those small goals, momentum. It's like a snowball rolling downhill. At first, it's barely a thing, just a handful of snow. But as you keep going, it grows bigger and moves faster. The more you accomplish, the more you'll believe in your ability to keep going. And that belief? That's what builds self-esteem. Also, don't underestimate the power of celebrating your wins. Seriously, give yourself credit for every step forward, no matter how small it seems. You don't have to throw a party, but take a moment to acknowledge your effort. Say it out loud, I did that. Write it down. Smile at yourself in the mirror. Whatever feels right. The point is to let yourself feel good about what you've done because you deserve it. And if you slip up, no big deal. Low self-esteem often comes with this nasty little voice in your head that says, see? You messed up again. But you don't have to listen to it. Remind yourself that progress isn't about being perfect, it's about showing up and trying again. Miss a day? Start fresh tomorrow. The beauty of small goals is that they're easy to reset. So, if you're feeling stuck, don't overthink it. Pick one tiny thing you can do today, and just do it. Then another tomorrow. Before you know it, those small steps will add up, and you'll be standing on much firmer ground. You've got this. Number 3, surround yourself with supportive people. If I had low self-esteem, one of the first things I'd do is seriously evaluate the people I spend most of my time with. You know how they say you're the average of the 5 people you hang out with? It's not just a catchy quote, it's real. If you're already struggling to see your own worth, the last thing you need is to be around people who make you feel even smaller, even if they're not doing it on purpose. That's where finding a truly supportive crew comes in. Supportive people are like emotional oxygen. They're the ones who make you feel alive when you're drowning in self-doubt. But don't confuse this with people who just tell you what you want to hear all the time. Supportive doesn't mean they'll sugarcoat the truth or give you a free pass on everything. It means they believe in you, even when you don't. They'll call you out when you're selling yourself short, but they'll do it in a way that makes you want to be better, not hide under a rock. Now, finding these people? That's the tricky part. Not everyone in your current circle is going to fit the bill, and that's okay. It doesn't mean they're bad people, it just means they're not the right people for this phase of your life. Maybe you've got a friend who loves to crack jokes at your expense. Sure, it's all in good fun, but does it actually feel good? Probably not. Or maybe there's that one person who always seems to downplay your wins, no matter how big or small. Oh, you finally got a promotion? Took you long enough. Yeah, you don't need that kind of energy right now, or ever, honestly. Start small. You don't have to overhaul your social life overnight. Begin by paying attention to how you feel after spending time with someone. Do you feel lighter, like you can take on the world? Or do you feel drained, second-guessing everything you said or did? Your emotions are a compass, pointing you toward the people who uplift you and away from those who don't. Trust that compass. If your current circle isn't cutting it, don't freak out. Building a new one might take time, but it's worth it. Look for communities or groups where you can meet like-minded people. It could be a club, a class, or even an online forum. The key is finding spaces where people value growth, kindness, and authenticity. You don't need a crowd, even one or two solid people in your corner can make a world of difference. Here's another thing to keep in mind. Being around supportive people doesn't mean you'll magically stop doubting yourself overnight. Their job isn't to fix you. That's your job. What they do is create a safe space where you can work on yourself without fear of judgment. They'll remind you of your strengths when you forget them and help you see possibilities when you're stuck in your head. But you've got to be willing to let them in. Vulnerability can be scary, especially when your self-esteem is low, but it's a necessary step. And let's be real, support goes both ways. If you want supportive people in your life, you've got to be one too. Cheer for their wins, listen when they need to vent, and show up when it matters. Relationships thrive on mutual respect and care. The more you invest in them, the more they'll invest in you. So, if you're struggling with self-esteem, don't underestimate the power of your environment. Surround yourself with people who see the best in you, even when you can't see it yourself. Let their belief in you be the spark that reignites your own belief. Because here's the truth, no one can do this alone, and the right people will remind you every day that you don't have to. Number 4, limit social media and comparisons. Alright, let's be real. Social media is both a blessing and a curse, but if my self-esteem were scraping the bottom of the barrel, one of the first things I'd do is seriously rethink how much time I spend scrolling. Why? Because let's face it, social media is basically a 24/7 highlight reel of everyone else's best moments. And when you're already feeling down on yourself, it's like pouring gasoline on the fire of self-doubt. Think about it. You're sitting there, maybe feeling a little unsure about your own life, and then bam, your feed hits you with someone's picture-perfect vacation, their shiny new car, their flawless selfie, or their "I just crushed this goal" post. It's not like people are posting their bad hair days or the nights they cry into a bowl of instant noodles. Nope, you're getting the polished, filtered, everything's awesome version of their lives. And even if you know it's not the full story, it's hard not to compare. That comparison trap? Brutal. It sneaks up on you. At first, you're just scrolling, liking a few posts, maybe laughing at a meme. Then suddenly, you're questioning everything about yourself. Why don't I look like that? Why haven't I achieved that? What am I even doing with my life? It's like you're involuntarily keeping score, and somehow, you're always losing. The irony? You're comparing your raw, unedited reality to someone else's curated fiction. Of course, it's not a fair fight. So, what do? Well, the obvious answer is to hit the brakes on social media. Not necessarily a full-on digital detox, unless you feel like that's what you need, but at least scaling back. Maybe set some boundaries. Like, no scrolling right before bed or first thing in the morning. Those are prime times when your brain's extra sensitive, and the last thing you need is to kickstart your day, or end it, with a self-esteem sucker punch. Another idea? Go on a bit of a cleanse. Nope, not the juice kind. I'm talking about unfollowing or muting accounts that make you feel like crap. It doesn't matter if it's someone you know or some influencer you've never met. If their content consistently leaves you feeling less than, it's time to say, thanks, but no thanks. Instead, fill your feed with accounts that inspire you, make you laugh, or remind you to be kind to yourself. Here's a curveball: ever notice how much time you spend scrolling without even realizing it? Social media is designed to suck you in, keep you engaged, and make you lose track of time. Before you know it, hours have passed, and you're left feeling drained. Setting a timer can help. Give yourself 15 to 20 minutes, max. When that timer goes off, you're done. It's a simple trick, but it works wonders. But limiting social media isn't just about screen time, it's also about mindset. The next time you catch yourself comparing your life to someone else's post, pause and remind yourself of this one truth: their journey isn't yours. You're on your own path, with your own struggles, triumphs, and timing. Just because someone else is shining in one area doesn't mean you're failing in another. Your worth isn't tied to likes, comments, or how your life stacks up against someone else's grid. It's also worth considering how you use social media. Instead of passively consuming content, try engaging in ways that make you feel good. Share something that genuinely excites you. Comment on a post to uplift someone else. Use the platform to connect, not compare. When you shift your focus, it can transform how you feel about the whole experience. Now, does this mean social media is evil? Not at all. It's a tool, and like any tool, it's all about how you use it. But if low self-esteem is a struggle, taking control of your relationship with social media can be a game changer. It's not about cutting yourself off from the world, it's about protecting your mental space and giving yourself room to grow. So, if I had low self-esteem, this would be one of my first moves: step back, reassess, and stop giving social media the power to make me feel less than I am. Because here's the truth: you're already enough, just as you are. Social media doesn't get to decide that. You do. Number 5. Practice daily gratitude and mindfulness. Alright, let's get real for a second. When your self-esteem is in the gutter, your mind can feel like it's stuck in an endless loop of negativity. You know the one. It's like a bad playlist you can't turn off, constantly reminding you of everything you think is wrong with you or your life. It's exhausting, isn't it? That's where practicing daily gratitude and mindfulness comes in. No, it's not some magical cure, but it is a way to shift your perspective, little by little, until you can finally breathe a little easier. Let's start with gratitude. I know, it sounds cliché. But stick with me for a second. Gratitude isn't about forcing yourself to feel thankful for things you're not actually thankful for. It's not about plastering on a fake smile and pretending everything is fine. It's more about noticing the small, often overlooked things that bring a tiny spark of joy or comfort to your day. And believe me, they're there, you just have to train yourself to see them. Here's how you start. Take 5 minutes every day, preferably when it's quiet, like right before bed or first thing in the morning, and think of 3 things you're grateful for. They don't have to be groundbreaking. In fact, the smaller, the better. Maybe it's the way sunlight streams through your window in the morning, the taste of your favorite tea, or even just the fact that you got through another day. Write them down if you can. There's something about putting pen to paper that makes it feel more real. Over time, this simple practice rewires your brain. I'm serious, it's like training a muscle. When you make an effort to look for things to appreciate, you start to notice more of them. It's not about pretending life is perfect, it's about balancing the scales. You've probably spent a lot of time focusing on what's wrong, so this is your way of reminding yourself that there's still good out there, even if it's small. And those little bits of good? They add up. Now, let's talk about mindfulness. This one can feel a bit intimidating at first, especially if you imagine it involves sitting cross-legged in complete silence for hours. Spoiler, it doesn't. Mindfulness is simply about being present, like really, fully present, in the moment. And when you've got low self-esteem, that can be tough. Your mind is probably either stuck replaying past mistakes or worrying about what's next. Sound familiar? The easiest way to dip your toes into mindfulness is by paying attention to your breath. Don't overthink it, just notice the way the air feels as it moves in and out of your body. Is it cool? Warm? Shallow? Deep? It might seem too simple to make a difference, but this tiny act of focus pulls you out of your head, even if only for a few seconds. And sometimes, that's all you need, a break from the mental noise. Another way to practice mindfulness is to tune into your senses. Next time you're eating, try actually tasting your food. Notice the textures, the flavors, the way it feels in your mouth. Or when you're outside, pay attention to what you see, hear, or smell. The rustle of leaves, the hum of distant traffic, the way the air smells after it rains. These small acts of awareness ground you in the present moment, and the more you practice, the easier it gets. Here's why gratitude and mindfulness work so well together. Gratitude shifts your perspective, while mindfulness helps you stay in the here and now. Together, they create a kind of mental reset button. Instead of being stuck in autopilot, constantly doubting yourself, you start to feel more connected to yourself, to your surroundings, and to the little joys that make life worth living. It's not going to fix everything overnight. But if you stick with it, 5 minutes a day, 10 if you're feeling ambitious, you'll start to notice subtle changes. Your mind won't feel quite so heavy. Your inner critic might pipe down a little. And slowly, you'll start to build a sense of calm and appreciation, one moment at a time. So, if you're feeling stuck, why not give it a shot? Start small. Breathe. Notice. Appreciate. And remember, this isn't about perfection. It's about showing up for yourself, one day at a time. You're worth that effort. Number 6, seek professional therapy or counseling if needed. If I had low self-esteem, I wouldn't hesitate to consider therapy or counseling. Seriously, why not? When you're stuck in a mental loop of self-doubt and self-criticism, it's like being trapped in a room with no windows. Therapy? That's the door. It's the thing that can help you find your way out when everything feels heavy, messy, and impossible to sort through on your own. Let's get something straight right off the bat. Going to therapy doesn't mean you're broken or weak. Honestly, it's the opposite. It takes guts to admit you need help. Think about it, how many people walk around pretending they're fine when they're not? Therapy is like saying, you know what? I deserve better than this. And you do. You deserve to feel good about yourself, to see your worth, to stop being your own worst critic. But sometimes, getting there isn't as simple as just thinking positive. That's where a professional can step in. A therapist isn't going to wave a magic wand and make your problems disappear. Let's be real about that. What they do is help you unpack the baggage you've been carrying, stuff you might not even realize is weighing you down. Maybe it's something someone said to you years ago that stuck, or maybe it's a belief you've held about yourself for as long as you can remember. Therapy shines a light on those things, giving you the clarity to see them for what they are, stories you've told yourself, not the truth. And you don't have to know exactly what's wrong to go to therapy. People often think they need a clear reason to book that first session, but trust me, you don't. Feeling stuck, unhappy, or not good enough is reason enough. Therapists are trained to help you figure out what's beneath those feelings. They'll ask questions that make you think, challenge your perspective in ways you didn't expect, and offer tools you can use to start rewriting the narrative in your head. The cool thing is, therapy isn't one size fits all. There are so many different approaches, and a good therapist will tailor the process to fit you. Some might use techniques that focus on how you think, like cognitive behavioral therapy, which helps you catch and change negative thought patterns. Others might explore your past to help you understand why you feel the way you do now. It's not about sticking you in a box or labeling you, it's about figuring out what works for your journey. Now, I get it, therapy can feel intimidating at first. You're basically opening up to a stranger about stuff you might not even tell your closest friends. That's not easy. But the beauty of therapy is that it's a judgment-free zone. A therapist's whole job is to help you without bias, without drama, and without the emotional baggage that sometimes comes with talking to people in your personal life. It's like having a safe space that exists solely for you. And yeah, therapy might feel awkward in the beginning. You might not even know what to say in your first session. That's okay. A good therapist will guide the conversation, help you feel at ease, and let things unfold naturally. It's not about rushing to fix everything, it's about creating a space where healing can start. Here's another thing, therapy isn't just about what happens in those sessions. It's about what you take from them and apply to your everyday life. You might walk away with tools to quiet that inner critic, strategies to set boundaries, or just a better understanding of yourself. Over time, those small changes add up, and you'll start to notice shifts in how you think, feel, and even interact with the world. So, if you're feeling stuck in the quicksand of low self-esteem, therapy is worth a shot. It's not a sign of failure, it's an investment in yourself. It's saying, I'm worth the time, the effort, and the care. And if there's one thing you deserve to believe, it's that. Number 7, practice posture correction and confident body language. Alright, let's talk about the way you carry yourself, literally. If I had low self-esteem, one of the first things I'd work on is my posture and body language. Sounds simple, right? But hear me out. The way you hold yourself doesn't just influence how other people see you, it's a game changer for how you feel about yourself. It's like your body and mind are in this secret handshake, constantly sending signals back and forth. Fix your posture, tweak your body language, and suddenly, it's like your brain starts to believe, hey, maybe we've got this after all. Let's start with the basics, posture. If you're hunched over, shoulders slumped, chin tucked down, guess what? You're broadcasting to the world, and to yourself, that you're not feeling too hot. It's like wearing a neon sign that says, I don't feel great about me. But when you straighten up, whole different vibe. Shoulders back, chest open, chin level, you go from meh to I'm here, and I mean business. Plus, it's not just about appearances. Good posture helps you breathe better, boosts circulation, and even makes you feel more alert. It's like a physical reset button. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not about walking around stiff as a board. Confidence in your body language isn't about perfection, it's about ease. Start by paying attention to how you're sitting and standing throughout the day. Are you curled into yourself, trying to take up as little space as possible? If so, Gently remind yourself to open up. Imagine there's a string pulling the top of your head toward the ceiling. Relax your shoulders. Let your arms hang naturally at your sides. Small tweaks, big impact. And then there's eye contact. This one can feel awkward at first, especially if low self-esteem has made you want to hide from the world. But trust me, eye contact is powerful. It's not about staring people down, that's just weird. It's about looking people in the eye, even briefly, to show that you're present and engaged. It sends a subtle but clear message: I'm here, and I'm worth being noticed. Let's not forget about your hands and arms. If you're crossing your arms all the time, it might feel like you're just getting comfortable, but to others, and even to your brain, it can read as closed off or defensive. Try keeping your arms open, maybe resting them at your sides or on a table if you're sitting. It feels weird at first, but over time, it becomes second nature. Here's where it gets really interesting: the feedback loop. When you adjust your posture and body language, it's not just about changing how you look on the outside. It's about rewiring how you feel on the inside. Studies show that standing or sitting in a confident posture, even if you're faking it at first, can actually increase feelings of confidence. It's like tricking your brain into thinking, wait a second, maybe I am kind of awesome. And let's talk about movement. Confident body language isn't just about standing still like a statue. It's in how you walk, how you gesture, how you carry yourself through space. Walk like you've got somewhere to be, even if you're just heading to the kitchen. Take purposeful steps. Swing your arms naturally. It's amazing how a little intention in your movement can shift your mindset. Now, am I saying posture and body language will magically fix everything? Of course not. But it's a solid starting point. When you carry yourself with confidence, even if you're just practicing, it creates a ripple effect. People respond to you differently. You start to feel more capable, more in control. It's like giving yourself a little pep talk without saying a word. So, if I had low self-esteem, I'd start here. I'd stand taller, look up, open up, and let my body tell my brain a new story, one where I'm not shrinking into the background but stepping into my own spotlight. It's a small shift, but sometimes, that's all it takes to start turning things around. Number 8. Maintain a self-esteem journal to track progress. Let me tell you something, your mind can be a sneaky little liar sometimes. It loves to remind you of every mistake, every shortcoming, every little thing you think you're failing at. But when it comes to your wins, the small victories, the moments where you showed up, even when it was hard, crickets. That's why keeping a self-esteem journal can be a total game changer. Think of it as a personal highlight reel, but instead of relying on your mind to play fair, you're the one curating it. Now, before you roll your eyes and think, ugh, journaling again? Hear me out. This isn't your typical Dear Diary situation. You're not here to spill your guts about every single thing that happened in your day. The point of a self-esteem journal is simple: to document proof, yes, proof, that you're making progress, even when it doesn't feel like it. Start small. Grab a notebook, open a notes app on your phone, or even scribble on scraps of paper if that's your vibe. You don't need anything fancy. This is about the content, not the packaging. At the end of each day, or whenever you get a quiet moment, ask yourself one question: what did I do today that I can feel good about? And don't overthink it. It could be something tiny, like getting out of bed when you really didn't feel like it. Maybe you finally tackled a task you'd been putting off. Or perhaps you just managed to show a little kindness to yourself instead of beating yourself up. Whatever it is, write it down. No filters. No judgments. Just you, being honest with yourself. Over time, this practice does something sneaky but powerful. It trains your brain to look for the good. Instead of automatically zeroing in on your flaws or missteps, you'll start to notice the moments where you're actually doing okay. And those moments? They add up. Day by day, entry by entry, you're building a body of evidence that, hey, maybe you're not as hopeless as that nagging inner voice wants you to believe. But it's not just about recording your wins. A self-esteem journal can also be a space to reflect on your challenges, but in a way that feels constructive, not crushing. Let's say you had a rough day. Instead of spiraling into why am I like this, try asking yourself, what could I do differently next time? Or what did I learn about myself today? The goal here isn't to beat yourself up, but to approach your struggles with curiosity and compassion. Here's a cool trick to try. Dedicate a section of your journal to affirmations. I know, affirmations can feel cheesy at first, but stick with me. These aren't about repeating empty platitudes like I'm the greatest person ever. Instead, write down statements that feel real and grounded. Things like, I'm capable of change, or I deserve kindness, especially from myself. Read them back to yourself when you need a little boost. Over time, these words start to sink in, slowly replacing the negative chatter in your head. Another thing? Go back and read your old entries. Seriously, don't skip this part. On days when you're feeling particularly low, flipping through your journal can be like looking at a roadmap of how far you've come. You'll see all the little things you've accomplished, all the lessons you've learned, and all the ways you've shown up for yourself. It's hard to argue with hard evidence, even if your brain tries. The beauty of a self-esteem journal is that it's yours. There's no right or wrong way to do it. Want to make it colorful and creative with doodles and stickers? Go for it. Prefer to keep it minimal and straightforward? That works, too. The only rule is to show up regularly, whether that's daily, weekly, or whenever you feel like it, and be honest. At the end of the day, this journal isn't just a tool. It's a conversation with yourself, one where you finally get to take control of the narrative. So, grab that pen, open that app, and start writing your story, one that reminds you of your worth, even on the days you forget. You've got this. Number 9, limit time with toxic or overly critical people. If I had low self-esteem, one of the first things I'd do is take a long, hard look at the people in my life. You know the ones I'm talking about, the nitpickers, the energy drainers, the ones who seem to find joy in pointing out everything that's wrong with you. When you're already struggling to feel good about yourself, being around these kinds of people is like trying to heal a wound while someone keeps poking at it. It's not just unhelpful, it's downright harmful. Let's get this straight, not everyone who's critical is toxic. Sometimes people give feedback because they care, even if they don't deliver it in the gentlest way. But there's a difference between constructive criticism and relentless negativity. Toxic people? They don't offer advice to help you grow, they criticize to tear you down or make themselves feel better. And if your self-esteem is already shaky, that constant drip of negativity can feel like a waterfall you're drowning in. The tricky part is that toxic people aren't always easy to spot, especially if you're used to their behavior. Maybe it's the friend who always has a backhanded compliment ready, "Wow, you actually did a good job on this." Or the family member who finds a way to make every conversation about your shortcomings. Even the coworker who seems to delight in subtly undermining you during meetings can fall into this category. The point is, these people don't make you feel supported, seen, or valued. They leave you feeling drained, second-guessing yourself, and, frankly, a little worse for wear. So, how do you deal with them? First, recognize that you're allowed to set boundaries. Seriously, this is huge. Just because someone is in your life, whether they're a friend, a colleague, or even family, doesn't mean they get unlimited access to your time and energy. Boundaries aren't about being mean or cutting people off for no reason, they're about protecting your peace and giving yourself the space to grow. And if someone truly cares about you, they'll respect those boundaries, even if it takes them a minute to adjust. Start small. You don't have to announce, "You're toxic, and I'm done with you." Although, let's be honest, that would feel pretty satisfying. Instead, think about ways you can gently limit your interactions. Maybe you cut down on the time you spend hanging out, or you avoid topics that tend to bring out their critical side. If they start to push your buttons, you can politely change the subject or excuse yourself. It's not about avoiding confrontation, it's about prioritizing your well-being. But let's talk about guilt, because that's a real thing. If you're used to being a people pleaser, setting boundaries might feel selfish or even cruel. You might worry about hurting their feelings or wonder if you're overreacting. Here's the thing, you're not responsible for managing other people's emotions, especially when they're the ones causing harm. Protecting your mental health isn't selfish, it's necessary. You can't pour from an empty cup, and if someone keeps tipping yours over, it's okay to step back. Now, let's get to the heart of why this matters so much. Low self-esteem thrives in environments that reinforce it. If you're surrounded by people who constantly point out your flaws, it's no wonder you start to believe them. On the flip side, when you limit your exposure to negativity, you create space for healthier, more supportive influences to come into your life. You start to realize that you don't have to accept every critique as gospel. Not everyone's opinion deserves a permanent place in your mind. And here's a bonus, as you distance yourself from toxicity, you'll start to notice changes in how you feel. Your mind will feel a little lighter. Your confidence will have room to breathe. You'll begin to see yourself in a more positive light, not because someone else told you to, but because you finally gave yourself permission to. So, if you're struggling with low self-esteem, take a step back from the people who constantly chip away at your confidence. It's not about cutting ties with everyone who annoys you, it's about recognizing who lifts you up and who pulls you down. And once you know the difference, protect your energy like your happiness depends on it, because it does. Number 10, focus on your strengths and accomplishments. Alright, let's talk about strengths and accomplishments. If I had low self-esteem, this would be one of the first things I'd tackle, not because it's easy, but because it's powerful. When you're stuck in a cycle of self-doubt, it's like your brain has this annoying habit of zoning in on everything you think is wrong with you. But guess what? That's not the whole picture. Not even close. Here's the thing, everyone has strengths. Yeah, you. Even if your self-esteem is in the gutter, there are things you're good at, things you've achieved, things that make you uniquely you. The trick is learning to spot them, appreciate them, and, most importantly, remind yourself of them when that little voice of doubt starts whispering nonsense. First things first, take a moment to sit with yourself, maybe grab a notebook or just your thoughts, and start listing your strengths. Don't overthink it. Maybe you're a great listener, or you're good with numbers, or you've got a knack for making people laugh. It doesn't have to be earth-shattering. In fact, it's often the little things, the everyday qualities, that make the biggest difference. And don't hold back. This is your space to hype yourself up. Now, let's talk accomplishments. These aren't just the big, flashy moments. Sure, graduating or landing a new job is awesome, but accomplishments can be smaller, too. Maybe you finished a project you've been procrastinating on. Maybe you made it through a tough week. Heck, maybe you just got out of bed on a day when everything felt like too much. Celebrate that. Accomplishments are anything that took effort, courage, or persistence. They all count. The next step? Keep these lists handy. Seriously, write them down somewhere you can see them. A sticky note on your mirror, a note in your phone, whatever works for you. The point is to have a go-to reminder of what you're capable of, especially on those days when self-doubt tries to creep back in. It's like having a cheat sheet for your own awesomeness. Here's where it gets fun. Once you've got a handle on your strengths and accomplishments, start leaning into them. Play to your strengths whenever you can. If you're great at organizing, use that skill to tackle something that's been stressing you out. If you're creative, Dive into a project that excites you. Focusing on what you're good at not only boosts your confidence but also reminds you of your value. And don't underestimate the power of positive reinforcement. When you catch yourself doing something well, no matter how small, take a moment to acknowledge it. It doesn't have to be a grand celebration, though. Hey, if you want to throw yourself a little mental party, go for it. Just a simple, "Hey, I did that," can go a long way. The more you recognize your wins, the more your brain starts to look for them. Now, I get it. When your self-esteem is low, this can feel awkward, even forced. That's normal. You might think, "Why am I focusing on this? It doesn't change anything." But here's the kicker, it does. Shifting your focus from what you think you lack to what you have creates a subtle but profound change. Over time, it becomes easier to see yourself in a more balanced light. Here's a pro tip: avoid comparing your strengths and accomplishments to anyone else's. That's a losing game, and it's not the point. This is about you. Your journey, your progress, your wins. Period. Someone else's strengths don't diminish yours, and their accomplishments don't make yours any less valid. Stay in your lane, and own it. So, if I had low self-esteem, this is what I'd do. I'd shine a spotlight on what I'm good at and remind myself of what I've already done. Because the truth is, there's so much more to you than the doubts in your head. And when you start to focus on the good stuff, that's when things really start to shift. It's not about becoming perfect, it's about remembering that you've always been enough. Number 11, identify and challenge negative beliefs. Let's be real for a second. When you've got low self-esteem, it often feels like there's this shadowy voice in your head constantly telling you everything you can't do, everything you're not, and everything you'll never be. It's relentless, isn't it? And the worst part? It feels so believable. That voice? It's powered by a set of negative beliefs you've probably been carrying around for years. The good news is, those beliefs aren't facts. They're just thoughts. And thoughts can be questioned, poked at, and dismantled piece by piece. The first step is figuring out what those sneaky beliefs actually are. Because let's be honest, half the time, they're running in the background like some terrible playlist you didn't even realize was on repeat. Start paying attention to what your inner critic is saying. Does it whisper, "You're not good enough"? Maybe it screams, "You always mess things up," or "Why would anyone care what you have to say?" Whatever it is, write it down. Seeing those words on paper makes them less abstract and more manageable. Plus, when you pull them out into the open, they lose some of their power. Now comes the fun part, challenging those beliefs. Think of it like being a lawyer in court, but instead of defending someone else, you're standing up for yourself. Ask questions. Be relentless. Where's the evidence that this belief is true? Is it based on actual facts, or is it just something you assumed because of one bad experience? Does this thought apply to every situation, or are you overgeneralizing? For example, just because you failed at something once doesn't mean you're destined to fail forever. One stumble doesn't define your whole journey. Here's another thing to consider: are these beliefs even yours? Sometimes the negative thoughts we carry around didn't originate from us. They might have been planted by someone else, a critical teacher, a harsh parent, a snarky comment from years ago that stuck. But just because someone else said it doesn't make it true. And even if it was true at some point in your life, it doesn't mean it has to be true now. Once you've poked enough holes in a negative belief, it's time to replace it with something better. Now, I'm not saying you should jump straight to "I'm amazing and perfect in every way" because, let's face it, your brain probably won't buy that. Instead, aim for something more balanced and believable. If your negative belief is "I always mess things up," try replacing it with "Sometimes I make mistakes, but I'm learning and improving." See the difference? It's kinder, more realistic, and leaves room for growth. Here's a trick that works wonders. Imagine saying your negative belief out loud to someone you care about. Picture telling your best friend, "You're a total failure," or "Nobody will ever like you." Feels wrong, doesn't it? So why is it okay to say those things to yourself? Spoiler, it's not. Treat yourself with the same compassion you'd show to someone else. You deserve that. Challenging negative beliefs isn't a one-and-done kind of thing. Those thoughts are stubborn, and they'll try to sneak back in when you're feeling tired or vulnerable. But every time you catch one and question it, you're weakening its grip. Over time, those old, limiting beliefs start to lose their edge, and new, healthier ones take their place. And don't forget, this process isn't about erasing every single doubt or insecurity. You're human, after all. It's about creating a little more room in your mind for positive, empowering thoughts to grow. It's about realizing that you are not your negative beliefs. You're so much more than that. So, the next time that voice in your head tries to tear you down, don't just sit there and take it. Question it. Challenge it. Talk back. You might be surprised at how much quieter it gets when you start standing up for yourself. And trust me, you're worth the fight. Low self-esteem doesn't define you, your actions do. If this video gave you the first steps to rise above, hit like, share it with someone who needs to hear this, and subscribe for more empowering content. Your transformation starts here. Let's grow together.